Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted, where we're all about having better conversations and inspiring people to think more deeply about faith, life, and leadership. My name is Sam, I'm your host, and I'm here with my friend and pastor, Mike Alba. How are you today?
I'm good, Sam. Thank you for the Hershey Kisses.
You're welcome.
Last week it was M&M's, and I asked for the big bag. I still didn't get that.
Yeah, well,
but I got these.
Maybe someday.
Here's what's interesting. Last week, I didn't get a lot of feedback about the podcast, other than people asking me why I didn't eat the M&M's.
You got that feedback?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not know that you got that feedback.
Why didn't I eat the M&M's? So, I don't eat them right now. They might not sound that great, but no one will be able to criticize this time.
I did a little Instagram video a little while ago for Unscripted, and my wife watched it, and she's like, "You did not." And what I did was I ate a Christmas cookie while doing the video, and she thought, like, that is not what you're supposed to do. You do not eat on camera. So you're breaking the same rule.
I just ate on camera, I guess, but now people understand that I actually do eat sweets.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I'm very happy to see that.
It's good too. Thanks.
You're welcome.
There's like 8 left, so.
Hey, you got one for each. You can do 2 on one more day, and then you can make it to next week.
Or all 8 after this.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I've got some thoughts. I've got some curiosities for you today. Some things I'm really excited to talk to you about. And I think
you kind of threatened this on Sunday.
Yeah, I did.
At the church business meeting, you're like, you had your stuff all figured out yet?
I did.
Already, and I have no clue, so.
I know. Some days it's like the day of where I like finally figure out what I'm going to land on. And some days it's like a week beforehand, and it's been planned for a while. And I've got like a whole list of things, but this wasn't even on that list. So this is exciting.
I kind of like that it's unscripted.
Me too.
I really do, because sermons are so different, right? You prepare so much, and the whole dream is just to share what God says about something.
Yeah,
what does Jesus say in the Bible? What does it mean? And there's really no room for personal opinion or anything.
Exactly.
And there's this pressure the whole time to be sure to communicate what God says.
Yes.
This is great. It's just me.
The pressure's off.
There's no pressure.
Other than saying something that's super controversial, so just don't do that. I mean, just kidding.
Yeah, I don't think I'm real super controversial,
No, that's true.
It's unscripted, so you'll get an honest answer, and people can disagree. That's actually good sometimes.
And I think that's the part, like, we have a little intro thing that we say, like, what we're all about and inspiring better conversations.
Yeah.
I think that really matters, like being able to have opinions, but also say, like, at the end, like, we're just going to try and do our best to follow God, but we're also going to have opinions, and it's fun to have them and fun to talk about them and not get so crazy about them.
Yeah. What you and I agree on is that we both love God. We're doing our best to follow Jesus. That's hardcore. There's a whole lot of other stuff that's not hardcore, so.
Yeah. So speaking of opinions, I'm curious for you.
Sorry.
Yeah, you all good?
I thought the ringer was off.
Should
I answer that?
No, you shouldn't answer that.
On camera? No? Okay.
Probably not. I don't know. Maybe you could next time. I'm curious. So this last couple of weeks, there's been this big thing in the news about GameStop. Do you know what GameStop is?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try and tell you what I think happened.
Okay.
And you can tell me if you think this actually happened. And then I want to talk about some of the thoughts around it and actually bring it into some stuff that I think really applies to everybody in everyday life. And I'm curious about your input on it.
Got it.
Okay. So what I think happened is a lot of people, I think through the platform Reddit, which I don't know very much about, but on this platform, they basically conspired together to buy a bunch of stock in GameStop.
Yes.
And that forces the price of that stock to skyrocket.
Yes. And they were trying to attack hedge funds and super rich investors that they are claiming sort of control the market. So this was like a grassroots approach to have some control over the stock market.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this happens. And like, I've never had a really amazing grasp of the stock market because I've always thought it sounded a little crazy.
Yep.
And what I'm realizing is it actually is crazy. So as far as I understand it, people like look at companies, and these companies are owned by these public people, and you can own part of them. And when you invest in them, you're saying, I think this company is going to do well, so I'm going to invest in them. But what really happens is it's just a popularity contest. And it doesn't always correlate to whether a company is a good company or not.
Right.
And so really all it is which group or which company is going to be the most popular. I'm going to buy that stock, let it go high, and then sell it when it stops being popular, just before it stops being popular.
Correct.
That's insane.
Yes.
That's the bedrock of our economic
system. It doesn't really matter how the company does. If people see it as valuable, then it's valuable.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
And
GameStop has done horribly business-wise.
Yeah.
So that's the joke in all this. Like, this company's been doing really, really bad. You had a bunch of people start buying it, makes the price go up, even though it's a bad company, and you're kind of controlling value or the stock market that way.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Okay. So this got me thinking about...
Can we sell RCC stock? Is that a possibility?
I don't think you can,
right.
but I mean...
I just thought of it right now. It's like,
Let's talk about that.
Okay, that's a joke. It's a joke. Good grief. Don't send me emails.
Okay,
There's no RCC stock.
Good. Well, maybe. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
We're doing better than GameStop.
We are doing better than GameStop. So as far as why I'm bringing this up is because I think it's such a curious thing. Like, people choose to invest money, and when they're doing this, like, I had a call with my financial advisor. Like, I'm trying to like make sure I have retirement. Someday I can like not work for a while. Like, at some point when I get really old, that's the hope and the goal. But I had that conversation. I was thinking, like, I'm making all these different decisions right now. They're all going to affect my future. It's about investments and about how I manage my money now. What are smart choices? And I was thinking we should just talk about what you invest in and why you choose to invest in things, and like what actually is an investment. Is there an investment that you can make outside of money? All these kinds of things. I'm curious. What do you think about investments, and like what's your personal philosophy on investing?
Wow. Okay. Way to come out of left field.
Yes. That's what this is.
Investing. Well, money's important. Like, you need, investing money wisely is a really good thing. We can touch on money. But mostly I would say time, for me, how I invest my time is even more important than how I invest my money. And then the exclamation point on time would be your life. Like, what are you actually investing your life in? That's what I would be most concerned about. Okay.
So great. That gets me to some of my questions. First and foremost, let's talk about money just a little bit longer.
Okay.
What are some of the things that you've learned that make you feel like you've invested your money well? Like, what do you actually invest in? Like, because there's stocks. I'm guessing you have a retirement thing, like you're doing all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But like when you take your budget every year or month or whenever you do it, what earns some weight for you investment wise? And I'll even share what has a weight for me.
Well, if you're talking only money right now.
Yeah, only money. Let's talk about that. And then
for
we'll get
many,
to more
many,
things.
many years now. Almost my whole adult life. Janet and I, we both have an income.
Yep.
And we've always sat down and said, 10% of our income is going to go to God. It's a biblical concept called tithing. We've done it basically, other than the first few months of our entire Christian life. So that's just what it is. 10% goes to God, done. And I feel really good about that. That's actually fun for me. I'm excited about it. And there's an investment principle there we could talk about when you invest with your faith. For us, then, about another, it's not 5 to 10, good years 10, another 10%-ish goes towards retirement.
Yeah.
And I don't, who knows how long that'll be or whatever. Ideally, if you're young and you're listening, if you start saving for retirement now, you'll do really, really well. Go see an investment person. You'll do really, really well if you save a little bit every year the whole time you work. So that's just a really conservative approach. So there's a chunk that goes to that, and that just comes off the top. And then after that, it's just all the normal stuff, right? There's house payments and groceries and, all that.
Yeah.
That's what's left. And then, biblically speaking, I think if you do that with the 80% that's left, you can really do anything you want with it. The house you buy or the amount of groceries, or do you eat lobster or hamburger or whatever? Do you spend money going out to eat or going to movies or whatever? That's the money you have left is, I think you can make some really fun choices with it.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I'm curious, like, out of your fun choices, what's like the most thing that you care about?
Well, we always go over budget. It's not maybe a fun choice, but for us it is on groceries.
Oh, really?
That's one area where just our entire life we've just bought whatever we wanted. Okay. So a steak is more expensive than hamburger. If we want a steak, we'll buy a steak. And it's just that's an area where we've you kind of splurge in some areas.
Yeah, for
whether
sure.
it's groceries or clothes or vacations or whatever. So a big splurge for us is groceries. Mm-hmm. We're not afraid of a giant grocery bill, and we have. It's always too much. We've had plenty of talks at home about the groceries being too much and why there's so much. So that's a real big one for us. Vacations is another really big one for us. We've probably spent more on vacations than your average family does, but for us that's a priority.
Yeah,
we've just done that a lot, and there's other things we don't do because of that. We don't stop out to eat a lot because of that. You just don't. You only have so much money, and you got to have priorities. So for us, vacationing is a bigger priority than eating out all the time.
That's great. For us, it's really interesting because groceries, are like one of the largest budget lines in our monthly budget because we have 3 boys and the whole bit. And like you want to eat decent food, and that's a thing. But it's always been the one that we've kind of gone over budget, and it's kind of just crept up in our budget line every month. And we're finally at a place where we're not going over budget, but it's just a funny thing because food is just so expensive, and it's funny.
And even with that, like with the kids, like you have kids, it costs a lot, but even there's an area where we've always kind of splurged. Like if you're going to buy Fruit Loops, we bought Fruit Loops, not cheapo second brand Fruit Loops, and which is just a family choice. Some families save money and buy the off-brand thing. We splurged and bought the brand that we really wanted, whether it was ice cream or Fruit Loops or whatever. That's what I'm saying with splurging with money, because with grocery money.
Okay, now I'm just curious, just totally unscripted. What's your favorite ice cream? Like what's the ice cream you buy?
Brand?
Anything. I don't know.
Well, I'm always testing. So yeah,
okay. So
it's always fun. Like,
have you bought every kind? Is what
yeah,
I'm
definitely. And every kind of frozen pizza.
Okay.
Every kind of ketchup.
So
every
since
kind of
you're an
peanut
expert,
butter.
what's the best brand of ice cream?
It depends on the flavor.
All
so
right.
and it's not always the most expensive. Like Breyers, I really like Breyers.
Yeah.
What is it? Cedar Crest, I think, is sort of cheap.
Yeah, it is.
On the cheaper side. I don't know, because Janet always grocery shops, but sometimes it's not the more expensive one.
Okay.
So, but that's what's fun about the testing part, right?
It totally is.
Same for pizzas. Like when the kids moved out, when we were finally empty nesters, a big stupid thing that we did was we just got like over 6 months, got like every brand of frozen pizza.
Yeah.
And then compared them and tried to figure out, is this still our favorite? Were we buying a cheaper one because we, fed them to the kids and their friends all the time?
Yeah.
And so, lots of matzah is there you go, is like one of our favorite frozen pizzas.
All right. That's good to know.
But you got to like a thin crust. So
I'm a big thin crust person.
Right. So
we found that our best cheap date night is a frozen pizza, add a couple fun ingredients on the top and do a salad on the top. And those two things together are like perfect. So
yeah,
there you go. Cheap date night, investments. We're talking. We're still on topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but that's an investment. You just
exactly
said it,
right.
Right. Spending time together, like that was a priority.
Yeah.
And it was more about the time than it was about the food you ate.
Exactly.
Right. So that's exactly what you're touching on, the investment of your life.
And I guess that's I'm glad you said that, because that's really what we're talking about here. Is people get crazy about GameStop or about the stock market or trying to make it big and get all this money or being really conservative and then trying to like step through these things. And what was occurring to me all week as I was thinking about this is our investments are different than that. They're not just money. They are time. They are relationships. They are these pieces of us that grow and become something. Even investing in a church with their time and money is something that we believe so sincerely is so valuable. But I don't know that people always see it that way. And I'm curious, like, do you think why do you see it the way you see it? And why might people want to see it more in that way?
People can talk about this all they want and put up fronts or whatever, hide behind things. But bottom line, how you invest your time and money is what you value.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. Let me see your calendar. Let me see your checkbook, and I will tell you what you value. You don't got to say a word to me about it. If you spend a ton of money on going out to eat, you value going out to eat. You don't have to hide behind that. That's just a fact about you. And for every other thing, whether it's on God or whatever it is, how you spend your money shows what you value. How you spend your time shows what you value. If you spend a ton of time playing with your kids every night, you really value spending time with your kids. It's obvious. If you're always making excuses and never spend time with your kids, you can say it's a value, but it's not.
Yeah.
If you're out golfing every night or fishing every night instead of hanging with your kids, you value that more. It's as simple as that. And that's just real life stuff. I've been there. There was time for golfing and fishing and junk before kids. And then there's a certain amount of less time after kids, if the kids are really that valuable. So that's an investment. And for me, the time with the kids was a super wise investment. They're both adults now. We have fantastic relationships. It's super fun to hang out with them. I love hanging out with them. They're great men. But there was an investment of time for many, many years to grow that relationship.
And that makes me, that brings me another thing that I was thinking about this week. How have you seen your investments, not money, well, maybe it's a little bit of money, but the things you've invested in, what have been the most valuable investments you've made in your life? As you're getting to this point, like, you've got grown kids and you've had years to save in different ways. What has been the most valuable things that you've invested in?
Well, it's going to sound lame. It's going to sound super churchy. And here I am. I'm a pastor. I work at a church. But I made a decision a long time ago about what my biggest values were. And for me, I said I valued my relationship with God a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. And I valued my family relationships a whole bunch. So that's how I've prioritized my time. And all these years later, 30 years later or whatever, It's turned out really well for me. I have a happy and healthy and growing relationship with God that continues to grow and evolve and get deeper in all sorts of ways. I love that.
Yeah.
And my family relationships are stellar. There's nothing I'd prefer. So I'm happy with the way I've invested my life and my time. Money wise, I've made some good investments, and I've gotten kicked in the hiney a couple of times on investments too. So I wouldn't claim expertise there.
Yeah.
Sometimes things look good that aren't. I should have bought GameStop, I think. But
right.
But yeah. So money wise, not always. I've done okay.
Mm-hmm.
But life and time, I'm really happy with how I've done.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I'd rather have the relationships that I have than even more money right now.
Yeah. And now let me ask you the flip question, not personally, but what are some investments you've seen people make that haven't worked out so well? Like and as I've thought about it, like we interact with people often, so we don't have to name names or anything like that. But like there's often a time where you will spend time counseling somebody and they'll be realizing, man, I should have not spent so much time doing X, or I was so committed to Y. What are the common themes that come up?
Well, two things. I mean, I would touch on money because I have sat with a lot of people on money stuff, and a lot of times they just don't realize where they're actually spending their money.
Yeah.
They don't realize how much it actually adds up when you stop out for different food or whatever every day. And then you look at, after a year of that every day, how much is it? So money can be that way. No one's bad. You just don't really think about it.
Definitely.
There's a little bit here all the time being spent, and it adds up. And I think a lot of times you just don't want to know. Right? It's more fun not to think about it.
Yeah.
Kind of like not wanting to look at the scale when you've been eating a little too much. It's the scale is for me at least, like I don't want to get on a scale today.
We have this wonderful thing of not having a scale in our house.
Yeah. So, but that's the same, right? Not wanting to get on the scale is the same thing as not wanting to look at your finances, because you've done some dumb stuff. You eat Cheetos all day, every day. The scale's no fun to look at.
Definitely.
Or ice cream or whatever. And I've made those mistakes. And we can do the same thing with money and with time. So I've seen people. And I get to have honest conversations with people as a pastor. You have these private conversations that are so revealing, and I'll share anything about myself. I don't care. And oftentimes then people will share back with me. And I just see a lot of regret on how they've spent their time. And sadly, often it's too late.
Yeah.
Like I've done this for years, and now this is the situation I'm in. I always want to get to younger people then and say, listen, this is what I keep hearing again and again and again from older people. Don't make this mistake.
Definitely. But it's hard to convince the person in the moment. Like you can talk to the younger person, but they're like, the one that I've heard the most is probably their intentions and their decisions don't always line up. Like they say they really care about and value their family or whatever else like that, and they don't want to value their work as much as they do, but they spend and feel so tied to work. Yep. And that's probably the biggest one, right? It's the hardest one to deal with.
Work and kids' activities.
Oh yeah,
I think lots of us, myself included, probably all people at times have a little bit underlying guilt about how good of a parent you are or not.
Yeah.
We all want to be good parents. Most all people really want to be a good parent, and then maybe do things with their kids that try to become a good parent that really aren't that helpful actually parenting wise or building a relationship wise. To sign your kid up for every activity doesn't make you a good parent.
Yeah.
That's not the simple fix. Time with your child is what's the most important. Like the two of you. Or you and your family, or you and two of their friends, or whatever. But we sometimes go for these easy fixes that don't turn out to be fixes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But with good intention, right? Like you want to have a good relationship with your kid, but then you got to really sit back and think about what makes the good relationship.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I love fishing a lot, and it would have been great if the kids just wanted to sit in a boat and fish all day, but that would have been dumb. Mm-hmm. That just would have been dumb. That's not what they needed. They might go fishing, but the trip had to be short, and we'd always stop for ice cream on the way home and be goofy, sit in the boat in the Culver's parking lot having ice cream in a boat in a parking lot. And that's fun, and that's what builds a relationship more than let's fish for 10 more minutes or whatever.
You're absolutely right. That makes sense. Those are the silly moments that are the ones that are memories, and then they cling to those.
And all these years later, I probably could have caught some more fish and had a lot worse relationship with my kids.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I don't regret Culver's parking lot ice creams.
It sounds like a good idea.
So
I don't have the boat for that, but we can find some quirky thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more thoughts on this and on investments. For a lot of people, and if you're listening to this, maybe you're listening because you are part of the church. Maybe you kind of stumbled across it, whatever. With that, maybe for you want to have a good relationship with God. Like that's a big, important part for you, like having faith and growing that. And you think it's worth investment. You just don't know how. Like, how do you invest in that relationship? There's the typical answers like Bible reading and prayer and all that stuff, but
Go to church on Sunday, all
exactly.
the normal stuff. Yep.
But for you, what have been like the most pivotal things that have grown your relationship with God? The investments that you've made that have forced you or caused you to now feel like you have a growing and vibrant relationship with God?
I would call it attempted obedience.
Okay. Sure.
I'm not the best like singer, so it's not like I'm walking around worshiping God, singing all the time. I oftentimes can forget to pray. I've talked about it in sermons before. And my prayers are short. You know, like there's amazing people that can pray for an hour straight and it's like a poem every time. You know, I'm not amazing in those areas. You know, I do read my Bible and all that stuff, but my biggest desire is to find out what God wants and then try to do it.
Yeah.
And that translates to every single area of your life. You know, you're out fishing with a friend who's struggling. Well, what does God want that day? Maybe some talk with a friend, right? And you're submitting to God and saying, listen, okay, you know, we'll go there. We'll talk about life and struggles and be raw and transparent and all that stuff. Or with my job or with my money, whatever. But the desire just to obey what I think God wants has helped me the most. And I think God blesses that. I say it to people all the time. If you're trying to do what God wants, God blesses you even if you're accidentally doing the wrong thing. If you're trying to decide, go right or left, and you think God says right, and so you go right, but all along he was saying left, he'll still bless you for your desire to obey him. Just like a good parent would. I always say this to parents, like when your kids are trying to do the right thing and you know they're trying to do the right thing, even if they're screwing it up, you help them. You do whatever you can behind the scenes to help them. And I think that's what God does for us. So that intention, the intention of trying to obey God has been what's brought me the closest to God over the years because I feel his blessings all the time, even while I screw up as much as the next guy.
What does the payoff look like? So if you make an investment, you get dividends, you get to sell the stock for a higher cost, whatever it is. For you over the years, what has the dividends actually look like? What has the blessings and fruit look like?
Okay. If we're talking money, the desire for investing money is personal security at retirement age. That's what you're hoping for, right? You can invest some money. Someday when you're super old, you're going to retire and you have personal security. You can pay your bills and buy your food and all that stuff.
Exactly.
When you're investing it wisely with your faith and with God, I think I have a personal security in my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And it just feels good. Like, you know when someone loves you, how good that feels. That's how I feel about God. Like I know I'm having the worst day ever. I've done 7 dumb things. God still loves me. Yeah. And I am totally secure in that. And it just feels good every day. On my good days, on my bad days, my personal security, my relationship with God, and my adoption into his family. I know I'm his son. I know that he loves me. And I know that he's super proud sometimes. And I know sometimes he's got to correct me. But the relationship is there, and I'm completely secure in that relationship. So I have personal security in my relationship with God, just as someone else can have personal security financially when they retire.
Yeah. I think that's really great.
And I'll say that all the way to heaven. When I retire to heaven, I think I'm still good with God.
Yes.
I think I get there and he's going to point out like, hey, Mike, you know, you kind of screwed up in these areas. You know, it's okay. I forgive you, but you're going to find out. And then you're going to be welcomed and rewarded and loved. And, you know, hopefully he's going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Yeah. That's the security I'm waiting for, not only in life, but in the next life.
So that makes me think of some things. The first thing is this. When we think about investments and we talk about it in relation to how we live for God, they're the same in some ways, and in other ways they're different. So with investments, you're putting money away and you're kind of earning something. With God, you're not earning it. You're just developing it and you're growing it. And you're literally realizing more and more your dependence on and your ability to live for him. So like that's the grace thing. And I read something this last week and we talked about it briefly, but saints aren't the ones that need the least amount of grace. They're the ones that actually consume and are lifted by and rely on the most amount of grace. And what I mean by that is, and you've just talked about it, you maybe made 7 mistakes, but your intentions are to live for God and follow him. And so you're on a daily basis trying to live for him and also realizing him sustaining you and forgiving you and growing you every single day. And that's like this relationship equity that happens. It's not something you earned, even though you're doing something to grow it. You know what I mean? It's not so much of like, I did this X, so I get Y on the output of it. It's I met God here and he met me there, and I know that I'm nothing without him. And I realize that more and more.
Yeah, and it's still security in that fresh start every day.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes people will make mistakes, especially young people, teenagers even will do something that is just dumb. They just made a bad mistake and did a dumb teenager thing. And like I did plenty of them. So I don't mean to insult anybody by saying it's dumb. No one was dumber than me as a teenager. But
maybe that's another Unscripted.
Yeah. But they'll do something naughty or dumb or whatever. And then that'll be their reputation. And that's who they think they are.
Yeah.
That's not who you are. That's before God. That's not who you are. It's not what you did yesterday. It's who you are today. So yesterday, as a young person, old person, whatever, you could have done, said, whatever, and you get up a new day, and God lets you start fresh again. You say, God, I'm really sorry for that yesterday, and I'm gonna take this new day, and I'm gonna try to obey you. You get a fresh start every day. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And I wish we could convince our young people that, because sometimes they feel like they develop a relationship or a reputation or whatever, and then that's who they are. That's not who they are. That's just who they are to people who are holding on to who they were yesterday.
Yes.
But who they are today is fresh with them and God. Why doesn't everyone want that? That's crazy good.
You're totally right. And it brings up another point, like, for investments, if you start early, you're golden. It helps out.
Yeah.
But if you start late, you're kind of in a bad spot potentially.
Yeah.
For God, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at, when you're at, you can start and you can experience it in the best way right now. And I didn't even intend to go to this place with this, but it's so neat to see the parallels and also the differences with investment. And when you talk about a relationship with God, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we've covered the gamut already. I don't even know how long we've been talking, but we've definitely already talked about a lot of investments.
I'm quewing up this Hershey Kiss for as soon as we're done.
I can tell. I'm seeing you getting ready.
On camera, but this one's getting gone as soon as we're done. There it is.
Okay, so
this is your a 2-minute warning or something? I don't know. You got 2 minutes until you eat that, Sam.
All right. Sounds good. Excuse me. We talked about investments, and we talked about the investments that you think have been the most important for you. If you're to maybe sum up what we've talked about and the things that you would, if you have 2 minutes with somebody or less, what's the thing that you're going to tell them? You get somebody when they're 18, when they're 20, whatever it is. What do you tell them when they're trying to think about what kind of investments to make, financially and relationally?
Well, what do you want the most? I don't have to do a lot of telling. I'd have to do a lot of asking.
Oh, okay.
What do you really want out of life? And like I said, for me, I wanted a good relationship with God. I wanted a good relationship with my family. Those are my two biggest ones.
Yeah.
There's others that are down the line. But you need to sit down and think about what you really want out of life. And you could be 20 right now or 60, but you have life left in a certain amount, and you never know how much. So what do you really want out of life? And then what are you doing about it? Because that's where your investment part comes in.
Yeah.
Money-wise, time-wise, whatever. What are you doing about getting to what you really want? Because you can't just sit there and wish for it. It's not going to happen. So make choices that bring you where you actually want to go.
Yeah. Decisions have consequences, good and bad.
Definitely.
And so you got to actually have decisions that are made.
Yeah.
And that's really great. Awesome. This is really fun. I was curious where you would go with this one, because we haven't talked about investments much on this, and we haven't talked about money much on this. And I think this is fun. We may come back to this one at some point.
Cool. Yeah. You said the money thing, and right away I puckered up a little bit
because
generally at church, money is the one taboo subject that you can't talk about. But maybe this is a nice format where you can talk about it and just be real. And no one thinks you're begging them for money or whatever.
Yeah, and that's not what this is.
Yeah.
But it is fun to think about, because I think the word investment specifically is super important to think about in every area of your life. What are you investing in? Because it will be what you get out.
Invest in what you value.
Yeah.
Simple as it. Your money, your time, all of it. Invest in what your values are.
And you know what? So this is one, please, I should be done, but I have to push on this because I'm curious. You said the thing like whatever you value is what you should invest in. You ask a lot of questions. At what point do you push on choosing to value different things?
Well, that's a life maturity thing.
Okay.
Like if you looked at my checkbook or whatever bank account, you'd see I value fishing a lot.
Yeah.
And you would just see that I spend a lot of money on lures.
Yeah.
You can go overboard with that, right? If that's your number one priority, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
So I think you need some people that you trust as people you can share your values with.
Yeah.
And they can challenge you. Right? Like if I'd go to my friends and say, well, fishing is my biggest value in life, and I'm spending 50% of my income on it. I have friends that would say, like, you're being an idiot, Mike. You need to cut that out.
Yeah.
So it's good. You need to check your values.
Yep.
But once you have your values aligned properly, then you invest in them with all of your life, money, time, whatever it is, energy.
Awesome.
Thoughts, your daydreaming life, all of it.
Yeah. I think the thing that I was hoping to get out of that was you can also invest in having people that are smarter than you in your life and like older and wiser. And they can tell you, hey, maybe that isn't the best investment.
Well, okay. Now we've really gone off subject. That's the smartest thing you can do, basically.
Yeah.
So often people see it as a weakness, like to ask advice of someone else.
Yeah.
People see it as like, oh no, I'm weak. I don't know enough. I have to ask advice. I think that makes you smart.
Definitely.
To find people that know more about a subject than you do and ask questions, that's brilliant. And every big time leader does that. In industry, in business, in sports, in life, in parenting, everyone who's really good at it asks others for advice. Everyone who stinks keeps it all to themselves, never talks to anyone, and just mumbles through the dark on their own.
I don't know if you realize this, but this is my secret motivation for having Unscripted. I just get to ask you a bunch of questions and get all kinds of answers, and it's just a nice, cheap way to do it. It's great.
Great. Okay.
Awesome. All right.
So next time, this is going to cost you $10. So
Okay.
We're talking money. So
or maybe a big bag of something.
yeah, we'll see. There'll be a new fee.
All right. Sounds
We'll
good.
go up from 0.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. Thanks so much for tuning in, if you've been tuning in. Yeah, thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing you all or listening to you or talking to you all next week. All right.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. Have a good one, guys.